Welcome to the Michigan Early Literacy Collaborative Module. The standard presented is in this PowerPoint. We'll focus on standard L.K.4a. This is one part of the language standards for kindergarten in the Common Core. Vocabulary acquisition in kindergarten. This module will provide ways to teach vocabulary intentionally, making connections to words and text, to use a balanced literacy model in the classroom, to check for understanding through formative assessments, to understand the assessment cycle, and to integrate the standard in reading and writing instruction. The Common Core anchor standards in kindergarten are represented here on the slide. The one we'll be focusing on is language. All of these are very important and they're all interrelated, and equal opportunity to these are to be given each day. Learning trajectories in kindergarten. When we look at this slide here, you'll notice the fall, winter, and spring. How you teach the standard will depend on the time of year. You will build on these anchor standards by establishing your classroom routines and procedures. The curriculum we teach is driven by the assessment cycle. The data from the assessments drives our instruction, revises our strategies to move towards our goals and our needs for children. The next slide here talks about the components of a balanced literacy program. This is something that I found, and it's based on the Minnesota academic standards, but it is focused on the Common Core. What I wanted to draw your attention was here is that a balanced literacy plan is most effective when children are given direct instructional support and a variety of daily reading and writing experiences that are needed in a complex process of becoming independent readers and writers. This is very important when we look at our core curriculum with a Common Core, bringing in the reading pieces, bringing in the writing, and then also working with words. This next slide talks about goal setting. Intentional teachers constantly think about goals and outcomes they want for their students and how their instructional decisions move their students towards their goals. The vocabulary development here is emphasized in the gold or the yellow that's here in the middle, but it's very important that you understand this is a foundational process. Scaffolding our learning in kindergarten classroom looks a little bit different. When we're looking at scaffolding our learning, we're really providing different opportunities or differentiating in the classroom. You might use them by using a graphic organizers, visuals, using their first language, read alouds, modeling, gestures, sentence starters. Those kinds of things help to build that support and confidence in their learning. The ZPD here, or the Zone of Proximal Development, was really created by Vygotsky. What is known, part of that is our schema or prior knowledge. But skills too difficult for a child to do on their own is kind of in that balance, and that's where we model, we guide, and support them. Many of our standards within the Common Core have prompting and support. This provides the opportunity for them to move in that area for them to learn best. When we look at the multiple intelligence here, that's also a big part of the process in differentiating, understanding how they learn, and balancing those things out in the classroom too. What does the gradual release of responsibility model look like and sound like? Research shows that optimal learning is achieved when teachers use the gradual release of responsibility model of instruction. We have a teaching phase, a teaching behavior, and a learner behavior. What we want to do is model for them what were our expectations, which is the I do, giving them an opportunity for that guided or modeled or shared within the teaching behavior here, which is the we do, and looking at the learner behavior, which is the you do, giving them an opportunity to transfer that learning and ownership. When we understand the standard, the L.K.4, we want to define this term, and it's defined as identifying new meanings for familiar words and apply them accurately, knowing duck is a bird, which is a noun, or learning the verb to duck. When we look at unpacking these standards, if you go to readtennessee.org, This here will go through and provide you tools to help prioritize your time and attention in teaching this standard in your classroom. These are some things that you will notice and need to understand. When we're understanding the parts of the mini lesson in a workshop model, this is important for you to understand how it was constructed. There's a connection, there's a teach, there's an active engagement, and a link. And again, this really models that transfer of learning. It also looks at the learning trajectories. It also integrates the responsibility of that gradual release for students. The story that I shared as the mentor text for this lesson is There Wasn't a Lady Who Swallowed a Fly. To begin your connection, share your learning target. Readers, today our learning target is to identify new meanings of words and use them correctly. Today we're going to learn about words that are tricky. I like to call them tricky words. These words can be read in two different ways. If a word or phrase can mean more than one thing, it has multiple meanings. So today I want to teach you how to identify new meanings of words and use them correctly. Again, to the right here with the materials, this is another graphic organizer that you can use. The link underneath on this page will also bring you to a teacher demonstrating how to create an anchor chart to use specifically in a lesson for this. Teach. This usually lasts 3 to 5 minutes. Here the teacher models or explains the precise teaching point by explaining or showing an example. This is the I do part of the gradual release. Let's practice a tricky word that has a multiple meaning. I would like you to all close your eyes. I want you to create a picture in your mind, orange. Give proper waiting time. Now open your eyes. Who pictured a color? Who pictured a fruit? Share your noticings and ask, who was right? We were all right because the word orange is a word with multiple meanings. It can mean color and it does mean fruit. Your teaching point in modeling in this lesson, today our vocabulary word is fly. The word fly can mean what? Write the word in a pre-made anchor chart. A fly is an insect. The word fly here is used as a noun. To fly is an action. It's something we do. Write the word verb. Students watch and listen. Write and say and have students repeat each sentence when you are finished writing them under the words that are labeled noun and verb. A fly is an insect. A bird can fly. Readers, did you notice how we were able to determine the multiple meanings of this word fly? And again, connect the learning target to the teaching point. Active engagement usually lasts 3 to 5 minutes. Here the readers will try teaching the teaching point through guided practice. Now it's time for the children to try. Restate the teaching point here again. This is part of the we do and the you do. Yesterday we read There Wasn't a Lady Who Swallowed a Fly. I noticed the tricky word fly was in the title. Words with multiple meanings can indeed trick us if we're not paying attention. Readers need to know different meanings of words to choose which one makes sense. Most of the time we can figure out the word by reading the other words around it. We will try this today and decide which meaning makes the most sense. Take out the text and choose what places you will want to flag to make this connection with the vocabulary word. In the beginning of the year, I would start with 2 places and have this done ahead of time. Children will think about your question first. Then they will pair and share their thinking. Model what this looks like first. And again, that's done at the beginning of the year. That expectation will be gradually given to them and released more towards the middle and end of the year. Review expectations of what a good listener and speaker do. And I would set the time limit for 20 seconds. You might even go as less as 10 seconds to do that, to model that they're listening and they're speaking. You may want to provide a sentence starter. Again, this is scaffolding. The author used the word fly like a noun or verb because in the story, and then have them make the connection to those parts that you flagged, and this can also be given as evidence to support their choice. Again, bring them back to the whole group after they've had a turn to think, pair, and share, and you may want to select some to share their noticings. Again, end this part of the lesson by restating the teaching point again. Link. Usually lasts no longer than 1 minute. This is also constituting as the share. Here we set up children to transfer the teaching point to their independent reading and writing. Make the connection to the story and how the author used his words, and by naming the teaching point one last time to transfer the learning. So readers, anytime you read a word or hear a word, sometimes that word can have multiple meanings. As a reader, it will help you make sense of what you're reading, as well as help you make a connection to that word and create a picture in your mind. Now over here to the right is another anchor chart idea. This you might want to keep over time to visualize their learning with other vocabulary words that have multiple meanings. On this slide right here, Skills Needed, this lesson assumes that your students will have an understanding of two crucial classroom strategies. First, being a good listener and speaker, and those expectations are taught in Readers and Writers Workshop. The second being to think first, and then to be able to turn and talk, which is their pair and share. And then thinking about what you've asked them and being able to discuss that and talk to their partners. This is something that also needs to be taught to be successful. At the end of your lesson, obviously this formative assessment piece is important. Again, formative assessment is just really checking for understanding. You're going to notice and name the expectation and look for understanding while you've taught this lesson. The teach is the skill of the multiple meanings, and this not mastery the first time you do it, but then also giving them opportunities to practice. Any evidence you'll see can be anecdotally recorded when they turn and talk when you're listening to their discussions, or when you bring them back for a class discussion. Evaluate and act. You can create a chart and list some of the multiple meaning words that we've talked about and categorize them as nouns and verbs, or give them that visual with some of the words that you've used with multiple meanings to make that connection. Your exit ticket will be your link and share. One of the things that I like to do is use a quick check, and this is 1 finger, I don't get it, I need help. 2 fingers, I kind of get it, but need some support. 3, I've got it. 4, I've got it, and I can teach a friend. Here you might look at repairing a student if they're able to get these things when you're working with multiple meaning words, but you'll need to revisit and revise as needed and adjust based upon these quick checks that you've been able to recognize after your lesson. Your balanced assessment here is just making sure that you're looking at how all of these things play a part of your daily instruction. Your formative assessments will be continuous while teaching the standard. Many opportunities will arise each week. This will be your discretion as to how much and when, but understanding how your balanced assessment works is equally important. When we look at providing children daily opportunities, we need to understand, how do I close the gap with the children that aren't learning? Where am I going and where am I now? So when you're constantly thinking of these things, it's important for you to focus that and use that information. When readers create mental images, they engage it with text in ways that make it personal and memorable to them alone. Anchored in prior knowledge, images come from the emotions of all the 5 senses, enhancing understanding and immersing the reader in rich detail. Again, this is Keenan Zimmerman in 1997. Which is an article that I found in looking at balanced assessment. Our last part here is looking at our anchor standards and finding ways to make sure that we're looking at integrating these or providing multiple opportunities and exposure during the year. If you've used the MESA units, they integrate them beautifully. I recommend that you go and take a look at those and see how they're used. Thank you again. I hope this has been helpful in teaching the standard L.K.4a, teaching vocabulary words with multiple meanings.